Hello, everyone. I am Kaylee, and I would like to welcome Liam from WatchLiam.com to the Murder Game. The Murder Game is a hypothetical thought exercise where Liam's goal is going to be to off as many people as possible using unlimited resources. But he's not allowed to use bombs or poison, so he's going to have to get creative or possibly dumb to outsmart his targets. My task is going to be to challenge him every step of the way. In the murder game, you don't care about getting caught, but if you do, the game ends. How far will Liam go to outwit his enemies and achieve a high score? Play smart, play ruthless, but remember, the game is all about numbers. Let's get into the fake crime and hear what Liam's solution to the murder game is. Welcome to the most twisted game of all. The murder game. This hypothetical thought exercise has one goal: eliminate as many people as you possibly can. It's all about numbers. No moral compass, just a thirst for chaos. Just 3 simple rules. Rule 1: unlimited resources. Money, technology, influence. You have everything at your fingertips. Rule 2: poison, bombs, off the table. Don't rely on usual methods. This game is for the creative, the cunning, the brilliant. It's your mind against the masses. Rule 3: you don't care about getting caught or eliminated, but once you are, the game ends. Count the bodies, the highest number wins. Are you ruthless enough to play the murder game?
So I'm fumbling a little bit because you sent me the instructions and I completely forgot you're not allowed to use poison. But that's totally fine because we don't need poison really for what I've got planned.
Let's hear it. What's the first step?
Okay, so I just want to take you down my line of thinking a little bit before we get to step one because this is a plan that involves 2 phases. Um, so the thing is, right? If you want to kill a lot of people, commit mass murder, and you don't want to get caught, they have to do it voluntarily. You can't go around just like stabbing a bunch of people, or you know, I mean, look, we've all seen GI Joe. We know what happens when Cobra announces their plans to the world. Joe stops them, right? So you got to get them to do it voluntarily. The other thing is, it can't be something that targets young white women because once young white women start to die, the news takes notice. So it has to be something where like young white women are maybe also included, but they can't be the first wave to go. And the reason I would say that is that it has to be something that would pique for phase one the interest of literally everybody in America, right? So the first thing I would do is I would mail everybody a dagger in a beautifully embroidered and enameled box.
Okay.
And on the top of that box lid would be a little plaque that would say Harry Curie sword. And of course, we all know Harry Curie is the suicide method for disgraced Japanese people up until the imperial era ended in that country. So the second thing I did was I took a look at just the history of mass suicides in around the world. And there's basically, when you talk about historical mass suicides, it falls into 2 categories. The first is people who kill themselves for religious reasons, and the second is because a population were besieged and they believed that the enemies at the gates were about to enter their city, take their women, loot their property, kill all the men, take all the treasure, burn all the buildings, right?
And they would rather take it into their own hands.
They would rather, there's like historically people have burned their own cities down and died within those cities rather than let the barbarians at the gate take them. I decided to leave off the first, the religious method, because really, you would have to kind of attack this through one of the more popular religions, and they all know like you don't kill a sucker, you bleed them dry for 70 years.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I mean, I think that we have a pretty good example of a religious mass suicide, which of course is Jonestown. So it sounds like
right.
your idea is kind of trying to get people to drink the Kool-Aid. That sort of is what you're leaning into, at least if you were going to go towards the religious route. Now, in Jonestown, about 900 people died, and I am very interested in Jonestown just as a event. I think that it's quite fascinating, and so I think you're leading down a very interesting track here.
No, I say no religion.
Okay. So
Because
you're
basically
skipping over religion
900 people, that's potatoes compared to the amount of
to what
people
you're
I'm
going to do? All
yeah,
right. All
no.
right.
I want to I'm talking mass casualties.
Okay.
The other thing is like with Jonestown, it was a lot of work. Like you had to get everybody to Guyana. You have to really like keep people kind of hypnotized for years and deeply indoctrinate them. Also, the other thing is, not everybody drank the Kool-Aid at Jonestown, and this is something that people forget. Is
Absolutely.
a lot of people refused to drink it, and they had to be shot.
Yes. They sure did.
So this breaks our two fundamental rules, by the way, which is poison and guns. Uh,
Poison and bombs. We could actually use guns. So
oh,
you could have gone with guns. You could have convinced everybody into a place and tried to shoot them all. But I think that I am liking where you're leading with this. I think it sounds like it's going to be very interesting. Before we get too far off the topic, though, because you're also a movie person, I just want to say one of my favorite Harry Curry scenes in any movie ever, like of all time, is in Harold and Maude when Harold is pretending to do it. And I just think that that scene is fucking genius. And I just wanted to quick aside that since I know that you're also a movie guy.
well, since we're talking about our favorites, mine would be in the Life of Brian. At
Yeah.
the very end, when Brian's on the cross and the Judean People's Front Suicide Squad come, and instead of freeing him, they just open their armor and stab themselves in the gut. Um,
All
by
right.
the way, if you're listening at home, feel free to write in with your own favorite Harry Carey suicide methods. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
movie scenes rather.
From the movies, of course.
So I'm going to leave religion alone. So
Okay.
then the question becomes how to get the largest number of people to think that they're going to be under siege to an extent that they need to kill themselves because the people that are going to attack them are crazy psychotic marauders. We
Okay.
can't do it through TikTok, and the reason is again you can't have young white women be the first front of death. And TikTok is where young white women who aren't funny but think they are go to live, right? So like you can't do that. That leaves the world's second most popular form of mass communication, sports talk radio. Radio shows, podcasts.
I had no idea.
Well, that's not an official look. I didn't do a study. I'm a little lazy for that, but yeah, sports talk radio. Because here's the thing: at the end of the day, what unites people against a common enemy
More
faster
than,
than
yeah.
sports?
You
Yeah.
know, you're totally right. And again, to jump into movies, I know very little about sports personally.
Hmm.
But I will say that I know how indoctrinated people are into sports and specifically sports talk radio because of the movie Big Fan. That I think is a perfect example, starring Patton Oswalt. I think that's a perfect example, again, to get back on the movies a little bit because that's my forte as above murder, I suppose. That is the perfect example of somebody becoming so obsessive with the talk radio, which it sounds like is what you're going to be leaning into.
I love Big Fan.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
directed by
great
a
movie.
former Onion editor, and I wish I could remember his name right now. Yeah, and I saw that at the Angelica in New York City.
Yeah,
Um,
great theater.
great theater. If you don't mind the six train kind of rumbling through every 20 minutes. So, who's a common enemy of every sports fan in America? Right. This is the question. Who are people more scared of when you're talking in terms of sports than anyone? I think we've seen it recently. Philadelphia sports fans used to be Oakland sports fans when they had their football team, the Raiders, and they had the famous black hole in the stands. That's what they called. So Raiders fans would essentially create such a negative space, like genuinely. I went to see an A's game at the Coliseum, and you walk in, and you just ooh, like it's like a haunted house.
So I never would have guessed that. First, when you were starting to ask that question, I was thinking that you were going to say who are sports fans more terrified? I thought you were going to go with referees was going to be the answer that I thought you were going to say. But then I'm actually surprised to hear that it's Eagles fans at this point. I would have guessed, like if I had to just randomly guess, because again, I know nothing about the sports, I would have guessed Steelers fans. I lived in Pittsburgh one year when they won the Super Bowl, and if that's when they are happy, I don't want to see them when they are sad.
Well, if here's the thing, right? It's like Steelers fans are everywhere, and I mean, I do
Yeah.
mean like you see Steelers flags everywhere. But I always kind of think of like, yeah, when they're celebrating, it's a little scary. But you get them one on one, or you get them when there's not a game going on. They're really solid, solid, solid of the earth, like basically Midwestern Americans.
Yeah.
I like Steelers fans when they're off duty. Eagles fans are nuts.
What do you
Um,
think makes them different?
dude, Philly's a hard town.
Yeah.
Uh, Pittsburgh is not a hard town. Pittsburgh's a very nice town with a lot of very nice people. They like their hockey. Philly is a sports town. I have a friend who took his 10-year-old son, they're Giants fans, and he took his 10-year-old son to an Eagles Giants game in Philadelphia at Veteran Field. And like, he just described the scene of his son at the urinal. He was 10 years old, just surrounded by screaming Eagles fans, like just these
Wow.
drunk guys, like fucking calling him the F slur. I went to a Mets. I'm from Queens, so I went to a Mets Phillies game in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park, and I almost got jumped in the parking lot. I was being very vocal because that's what you do in New York when you're talking shit, and like I literally, this guy must have been talking to his like AA sponsor or something, because I literally walked by this like huge guy on the phone on the stairs, just like, yeah, I really want to knock this fucking guy's teeth out. And he started talking about the things I've been screaming, and like I was like, oh right, I mean, just Eagle like Philly fans are a step above, and they're very proud of it. Like they're
Okay.
very proud of like they go. You ever watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Yeah, and I never got that impression.
That's like a documentary. I mean, like honestly, they
I
call it.
just whenever they go to the Eagles games, I just imagine them putting acid in beers and getting fucking ripped out of their mind. I'm not imagining, and I have family from Philly also. Now, albeit none of my family is sports fans similar to me, so I have never been to an Eagles
Well,
game.
no
I have never
offense,
experienced the sports culture in
right?
Philadelphia. But I never realized it. I'm gonna have to go back and watch It's Always Sunny with a whole different lens.
They call it Filthy Delphia.
Yeah,
There's one called the Gang Beats the Record,
yeah.
where they beat Wade Boggs' record for getting drunk on
Yep.
an airplane. That's Philly sports. They go nuts. Everybody in America also hates the Cowboys, but I just
Yeah.
don't think people are afraid of Cowboys fans.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. There's a grittiness. There's a
Yeah,
grittiness.
yeah, and it's like here's the thing: people hate the Chiefs now, but that's Taylor Swift's team. Like you can't be afraid
Yeah.
of Taylor Swift's team. It's when you get down to like real hardcore, this is the only thing I'm living for. You have to go to America's Northeast,
All
and you
right.
really,
All right.
or surprisingly, LA Dodgers fans, but they're not like notorious. Like Philly sports fans are kind of considered a gang in some areas. Okay,
Okay, so
so
what are we doing to these sports
okay,
fans?
we're starting phase one. You start mass hysteria on sports talk radio. That shouldn't be hard. The hosts of almost any sports talk radio show or podcast are halfway hysterical and overblowing everything anyway. So I buy sports talk radio stations in every market. I
Yep.
buy Barstool Sports. I buy all
Yep.
the little podcasts, Sully Baseball, like whatever's out there, I buy it. And I whip up hysteria with stories of marauding Philly sports fans in other unnamed cities going on a rampage, burning down buildings, taking their women. Like really just like never say where it is. Just get people with this idea that like there's this marauding gang of Eagles fans and Phillies fans and 76er fans out there. Then I send out the packages to every resident with the Harry sword, and I find a bunch of day workers at like Home Depot parking lot or whatever. I pay them
Yep.
$100 each to wear Philly sports gear and just start driving around the outlying suburbs of every major city. It only takes one city to fall to really get things going. I'm guessing it is going to be Dallas because they've been waiting for the Yankees to start Civil War II. They've already got their pickup trucks and their guns. And then, those you're gonna have to fight Dallas. You're gonna have to fight San Antonio. But you get those two. You get those two teams. You get those two cities down. The rest, I think, fall like dominoes, which leaves the city of Philadelphia standing. The only city where nobody's afraid of Eagles fans because they are Eagles fans.
Yes.
So then we start phase two. We're almost done, Kaylee. This is almost the end of my plan.
Wait, before we get into phase two, can I just point something out that I do think is
Absolutely.
very interesting about your plan? Okay, so in phase one, how you have described it so far, you have two possibilities.
Mhm.
One, people fall for it and they start killing themselves, in which
Mhm.
case, success. Two, they don't fall for it and they take their beautiful daggers and their beautifully wrapped boxes and they start killing the Phillies fans, in which case, either way, you're getting numbers.
Right. No, that's exactly
So,
it.
which is a really interesting way. I was going to criticize you when you started giving this suggestion. I was going to say, boy, it's really going to take much more than I think you think it is to be able to
Right.
convince people that this is so dire that they must kill themselves. But I think that you win either way. At least you get some numbers either way.
And I think the thing that I forgot to mention is, I will have to have a small armed force there to basically take out the people of Dallas and San Antonio and other Texas cities as they fight back. But I think honestly, it just takes a day, and it just takes the image of a bunch of Phillies fans gunning people down to scare
Yeah.
people. So then phase two, we got to take it international because that's not
Okay.
enough numbers for me. I don't want to just kill every person who lives in a major residential area in the United States. Also, the city of Philadelphia is the only major city in America left standing, which means the mayor of Philadelphia is the de facto president of the United States now.
If
Um,
you get everybody, if you
if
get everybody, which I think
well,
is debatable, but let's say your perfect scenario, the mayor of Philadelphia is now the de facto president.
we're just talking about the plan, right? Like,
Yeah.
of course,
Yep.
once you get the plan going, you have to really, But let's say I'm right.
Yes.
Let's say it's like that Twilight Zone episode. There's a monster on Main Street, and
Yep.
everyone just starts killing themselves because they believe they're going to die anyway. They're being invaded. Mayor of Philadelphia. I don't know if you watched the video of the mayor of Philadelphia trying to spell the word Eagles.
I have
Uh,
not, but
it's pretty great,
I
and
imagine who was it that tried to spell potato? Now I can't remember who it was, but back
Dan
in like,
Quayle.
yes, yeah.
Yeah,
I
no, people
imagine it's similar.
people don't lose their careers over that. In fact, so she spelled it like EGSLES or
Oh,
EGSAL, like something crazy. And the people of Philly are so proud of being who they are and electing who they elect that they just made shirts with that on the front for the Super Bowl. I mean, there was a news clip that was just going around with a little kid who's a Phillies fan telling everyone to go fuck themselves on the news.
no, buddy.
Which means, but here's the thing: she gets the nuclear codes,
Yeah.
right? So, like, boy, how hard is it to get the Philly to drop the bomb on Moscow? My plan is just plant a news story like, Putin calls Italian women with thick ankles ugly, and then half the guys in Philly will nuke Moscow just to defend their sister's honor. So that's as right. So then you start a global thermonuclear war, and that takes care of like any cities that haven't killed themselves. Like just like the stragglers will get all picked off after that.
I love your ambition. I love your ambition. I am
Like,
calling your phase two baloney, though, and that it goes outside of the rules of the murder game because that is a bomb, sir,
oh, it is a
and
bomb. Ah,
no bombs.
oh,
But I do,
God.
I think that you could renovate your plan. So I think that there is another possible way that you convince
I'm genuinely
there to
mad.
be a war.
Genuinely mad.
Hey, the rules of the game are complicated, but they're very important. And I will say this, the reason that the rules exist is so that people get creative, and you have definitely gotten creative. So I am loving the solution, even if it doesn't entirely fit within those silly little rules.
Actually, you know what? In that case, I could just mail, Harry Carry swords to people all over Europe and Russia, and then just send actual Eagles fans on Viking boats. That would do it.
That might do it. That might do it.
Give them a couple cases of now. What do you drink up there?
Yingling,
Yingling. That's it.
Yingling.
Your ridiculously weak Yingling beer. You give them like 20 or 80 cases of that.
Hey, you can shit on the people of Philadelphia, but don't shit on Yingling. We like that here in Rochester too, damn it.
I know. That's why I was like annoyed I couldn't think of it.
I think that this is a very interesting solution. I think that okay, so what are your thoughts on now we just talked about everything goes ideal and everything is perfect to plan. If everything is perfect to plan, you effectively wipe out the world. So you get tens of millions if not billions of people.
Right. I'm aiming for
If
millions. Yeah.
if things don't go well, how many what do you think your low end number is? Let's say that you only convince one city to do this and not every person in the city does it. Only the gullible people who are part of like conspiracy theory groups. What do you think is your low end number in that sort of situation?
Well, I mean, you're talking about like the weaker-minded cities like Cleveland or and then what you're really talking about is like how do I get the rural areas? Because that's, a big segment of this country not only believes in conspiracy theories but have taken those theories mainstream. So it's
Yep.
just a matter really of finding those guys and women who all seem to be over 60 and in terrible shape and convincing them that the end times have actually come and that gold is worthless because they've all been hoarding gold thanks to Glenn. God, I can't remember names today. I'm so sorry. But the guy who used to have a TV show, Alex Jones. The ones who belong to megachurches have been hoarding horrible slop food in their bunkers. So
Yep.
you just got to get them convinced that this is the start of end times. Really, what better way than to like take some passages from Revelation about the angel that's come, explain that an angel is a person with wings, who's a person with wings. Eagles fans, therefore we're fulfilling prophecy.
So you do get into the religion a little bit at least, but I think that that's an interesting point that does bolster your kind of not argument, but your trickery, your trickery.
I mean, look at the end of the day, it's just about numbers, Kaylee.
It's
I
true.
like one thing you learn in business as a very successful businessman. I've learned this is like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you get the customer through the door. You just got to get them through the door.
I think if I had to put a low end number on your
Mhm.
numbers, I think that you have two possible scenarios. Let's scoot over phase 2. Phase 2 is only if everything goes perfect and you end up getting to move outside of the United States.
Okay.
Let's talk just about phase 1. In phase
Okay.
1, I think that you could probably convince at least, let's say, I think if you hit a whole bunch of cities and you hire people to go pretend like they're Eagles fans,
Mhm.
and you really convince people of this because you've taken over all of the sports talk radio and all of these things have happened. I think that you can probably get a minimum of 2,000 people, and I think that you could get a minimum of 2,000 people for two different reasons. One, people actually do end up killing themselves, in which case boom,
Mhm.
done. And your hands are relatively clean at that point. The other possibility, though, is that you hire, let's say, 100 people to be pretend Philadelphia fans in each city. They go around, and instead of people killing themselves, they kill these people. And
Mhm.
boom, again, you're done. You have your hands relatively clean, and you have convinced these people to do things. However, I do think that at that point, you get figured out. People say, well, maybe these people aren't really, maybe these Phillies fans aren't really all that crazy. And at this point, you would have to contend with the TikTok news, which you have already pointed out
Mhm.
is maybe equally as far of a reach as the sports news, if not farther. If you have young women going on TikTok who start to say things like, "Hey guys, it turns out that these Philadelphia fans really aren't crazy. They're just actors." As soon as that happens, you lose all credibility and you stop getting numbers.
I'm gonna just. I have two things to refute you with. Uh,
Please.
First is we live in a world now where if you call anyone a crisis actor, you're going to get sued. Like we all saw what happened to Alex Jones. He lost billions. He was awarded. There, those people were awarded billions with a B.
Yep.
Um, the second is, and this is where I got this idea from. Ultimately, is the whole Orson Welles' War of the Worlds debacle in the
Mm-hmm.
1930s,
Yeah.
where he decided to dramatize around Halloween War of the Worlds as if it were an actual radio newscast. People panicked. People fled New Jersey. People like were literally ready to kill themselves than be taken by aliens from outer space. And at the end of the day, I think what saved a lot of people is just how ridiculous it was that there was this big invasion of aliens in New Jersey, and yet nobody could see or hear them, or like actual news. Like the AP wasn't reporting it. Now imagine you have people for real dressed as Eagles fans in major cities actually attacking. That could be that could be posted on TikTok. I think people might be a little more gullible than you're giving them credit for.
So you think that the other forms of social media would play into your plan, whereas I was kind of saying that they would go against it. That is interesting. That is interesting. And I'm looking up War of the Worlds right now because my recollection is that we have all heard that story that people went crazy and people fled and people were terrified of an alien invasion that was really happening. I believe that I have heard before that that was quite exaggerated and that in fact very few people did actually fall for it. So I'm just reading right now, and this is from Wikipedia, so who the heck knows how reliable it is. But it says some listeners heard only a portion of the broadcast and, in the tension and anxiety prior to World War II, mistook it for genuine news broadcast. Thousands of them shared the false reports with others or called CBS newspapers or the police to ask if the broadcast was real. Many newspapers assumed that the large number of phone calls and scattered reports of listeners rushing about or fleeing their homes proved the existence of a mass panic, but such behavior was never widespread.
Outside of Grover's Mills, New Jersey, who, but the, I'm just going to say this, and this is human nature.
Yes.
The further away we get from the event, and the further away we get from witnesses, the more people say like, "Oh yeah, I was never fooled," or like, "Oh yeah, no, my parents were never fooled," but it happened to other people. It
Yeah.
happened to
That's
somebody.
true.
Somebody was flooding CBS News with questions. And the other thing I'll point out is just social media is the best way to spread bad information. Like
Yeah.
TikTok, Instagram Live, like I've seen more bullshit since social media became prevalent than I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I'm
Yeah.
90 years old.
I don't believe that social media can certainly I do believe that social media can certainly spread misinformation. I think that the problem here is that I don't think that the fear of getting sued in the same way that the Alex Jones situation happened, I don't think that that fear would exist quite as much when people are physically dying. So, like, if you see that your neighbors are killing each other, you are much more likely to stop worrying about getting sued and worry about your own life. And that might make you more likely to say, hey, this is all fake. This is not a real thing. Why are we all doing this to each other?
As a counterpoint, social media told me Chappelle Rowan is the best new artist of the year, and I can't believe that.
Oh, come on. It must be true if social media said it.
Social media says it. What do I know? I'm just kidding.
I've never heard one of her songs, so I couldn't tell you. I believe it because social media said it.
I like to set. Spotify has an AI DJ,
Okay.
and like when I'm driving, I live in LA, so I'm just endlessly driving, and all I hear are just like all these songs. And every time he announces he's going to start playing recent hits, I fast forward as fast as I can. But I do stop and listen once in a while because I'm like, I want to be part of pop culture. I might as well know what it is.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I used to be a little bit more on top of things, but I am far from that now.
It's just a product of
Maybe
age.
one day. Maybe one day. Well, I mean, I'm definitely not going to be listening to sports talk radio anytime soon. I can assure you that. I would rather listen to Chappell Roan than that right now, for sure. Terrified a little bit, but that's okay. Um, I think that your solution is really, really interesting. I think it's super creative. I think your high end number, I'm gonna put you right at 1 million. I think that 1 million makes sense. I think that's an insanely, insanely high number. I do think that you're right. It could possibly go higher, but you run the risk of getting caught at many steps of the way, or at least getting discovered and people stop doing what they're going to do. So let's average ourselves out at 1 million, even though again it could potentially be higher than that. I think for your low end number, I like the idea of sticking around that 2,000. You've done a great job of trying to convince me otherwise, but I just don't think I think you can get a couple hundred in a bunch of different cities, and I think you kind of tap out in your low end solution where it doesn't go according to plan. I think you're only getting maybe 10 to 100 people per city, and you're not convincing every single city.
And also, I mean, I do run up against a lot of people have no courage or honor. So, I guess not everybody's going to kill themselves, and at some point, you have to
I
offer yourself.
I think it's going to be much harder to get people to kill themselves than it is to get them to kill the intruders. I think that in human nature, we are more likely to kill those intruders. So I think that you're going to have more luck with getting them to kill your fake Phillies fans than you are getting them to kill themselves.
Okay.
But I still think you could get very high numbers with that. So this is an awesome solution to the murder game. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. This was incredibly creative.
Skull, thank you so much
Yes.
for having me and letting me share my
Yeah,
fantasies.
absolutely. And I would love to hear what everybody thinks about Liam's solution to the murder game. If you want to be on the Murder Game podcast, you can always contact me and share your solution on the show. I would love to have you because I love talking about murder, and I am so glad that Liam joined me for that today. Liam, let everybody know what else they can hear you talking about and where they can hear that.
Oh, I'm launching my own YouTube channel. That's it. You can go to youtube.com/at watch Liam today. Or I've set up a couple of URL redirects, cliam.com, watchliam.com. At the time of this recording, they're both directed towards my YouTube channel. I have been uploading mostly old podcast episodes of mine, like from 10 to 14 years ago. But I have interviewed on that show. I interviewed everybody from. We have up this week Stephen Tobolowsky, who you might know from as Ned Ryerson from Groundhog Day,
Yeah.
and Gilbert Gottfried about his then upcoming podcast, Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast. I sat in the Friars Club with Gilbert and his co-host Frank and Gilbert's wife Dara, and we just talked about that then upcoming show. Next week, I've got an interview with Lewis Black coming up and someone else I forget. So I'm just kind of like doing that, but also this coming week, I have a friend of mine who I think is going to confirm today. We're just going to just listen to music for a couple of hours, just do
Great.
stuff like that, just hang out while I kind of get my numbers up and Anyway, I'm sorry this plug is so long.
No,
Yeah,
no, it's wonderful. And it's great. People get to know that you love talking about things like comedy, like movies, like music.
speaking of other podcasts, this is mostly going to be a pop culture channel. So
Yes.
definitely come in. Everyone's welcome.
So, lots of Chaperone and no Phillies fans is what I'm hearing.
Actually, I'll tell you what. My cousin is like I think one of the country's best pianists in my opinion, and she just played with Chapel Roan at the Grammys, and she
Wow.
tours with Boy Genius. I'm very proud of her.
That's
So I should not
amazing.
be. I don't think I should be bagging on Chapel Roan in public. So I
But you can
apologize.
still bag on the Phillies fans.
Oh yeah, fuck Philly. No, no, I'm just kidding. I love Philadelphia. And if I get paid to perform there again, I'd be very happy to see you guys.
All right, well, thank you again, Liam, so much, and thank you all for listening. I cannot wait until we explore more fake crime next time. The Murder Game.